Okay, Cassidy, go for it.
So I was wondering if you knew what the age range of people that are homeless in Geelong is.
Well, in Geelong and the Bellarine Peninsula, it's all ages, all different ages. There's some people who are in their 60s, 70s, living in cars. There are children living in cars with their parents. So it's not specific to any age range. It's a problem that's covering all ages and all different parts of society. It's not just the poor, it's the middle class, it's even some rich people. I actually know a millionaire who's living in his car because he's sick of society and he wants to just get away from it all. So he goes and lives in his car. So it affects all ages in society.
Why are people in Geelong mostly homeless?
Again, it's not one reason. There could be lots of reasons. Obviously, there's economic reasons. So they could have lost a job, or they just simply can't afford to pay rent, or they've got behind on rent and they can't catch up. And when that happens, they usually get kicked out. But it could be family dramas. It could be there could be family violence. So it could be that there's been, say, a husband and wife or a partner have beaten each other up and they've got nowhere to go, so they go into their cars or they go onto the streets. Could just be someone's had a mental breakdown because they can't cope with all the pressures of life. It could be a whole stack of reasons. Could be, like I said, disagreements, mental health, economic reasons. Could just be they want to get away from family. So there's a whole stack of reasons.
What facilities are open to homeless people in Geelong?
Okay, well, there's just been a brand new facility that's open called the Lazarus Centre, and that's actually a drop-in centre for during the day. So people can't stay there overnight, but there's a centre there where people can go in and get cleaned up and wash their clothes and get something to eat. There's also the Salvos have their women and children's refuge, which is specifically for homeless women and children, and that is a great service, but there's a waiting list of up to like 100 people wanting to get into it, so it's overwhelmed. There are other homeless services as well. There's like Samaritan House, which is another centre in Moolap, and there's a few other places. There's some affordable housing, boarding houses type places around the place, and we visit them on the van, some of them. But there aren't too many facilities. Affordable housing is a massive problem. So, but not just affordable housing, but emergency accommodation. In fact, the Women's and Children's Refuge that the Salvation Army have is in risk of closing because of lack of funding.
What other supports do people need apart from housing?
Okay, that's a good question, because the best support that people need that's homeless is a positive, caring, trusting connection. Just someone that values them. So if you see a homeless person, you don't have to necessarily go and buy them something or do something for them other than sit next to them, say hi, treat them like a human being. That human connection is the best way we can support people who are homeless, but obviously that's just the start. So then from that, it's getting to know them, finding out if there's anything we can do. Sometimes they don't want any help. Sometimes they desperately need help and we still can't help. So it could be connecting them to other services. So there's plenty of services out there, but getting people to connect to those services, whether they're mental health services, just doctors, like community group services like the Salvation Army, and we've got the church side of it too, so the spiritual support, but the counselling and the general well-being, which comes back to just everybody, all of us, just being kind to people who find themselves homeless, because that kindness is an amazing support to people who are lonely. Like, you imagine living in your car, lonely, shameful, they feel shame because of the situation they're in. So when people point and laugh, ha ha, you're homeless, that actually creates mental illness quite quickly for people who are in that situation. So the more homeless we're getting, the rise in mental illness we're getting, and that's the only way to counteract that is to positively care and support non-judgmentally people in our community.
What is needed to stop people from becoming homeless?
That's a good question. What is needed? Love. A lot of love is needed. You know, like you think of, but not just love. Love's a simple answer, but it's not a simple answer. Best thing to do when looking at homelessness, I did say before that a lot of things that are needed is love. Love is a big thing. But you know, in Finland, they had a big problem with homelessness. And they went from something like 15,000 homeless people within 2 years down to 3,000 homeless people. And they actually did that by creating affordable homes for people to live in. Because the reality is, if someone has a safe place to live, they can start to get well. But not just dumping someone in a home, but actually putting them in an environment where they're supported. So there was 5 different kinds of accommodation. So you'd have like the standard kind of refuge support that had services associated, and then there'd be like standalone homes and all these different other services, which I won't bother boring you with at the moment. But there was a 5-prong attack on affordable homes. So the federal government, the state government, and the local government all worked together to address the problem. And the reality is, as the Salvation Army, we can't do it all by ourselves. We can't fix homelessness just by doing what we do, by making loving connections with people, because it's a systemic problem. What I mean by that is there's no houses to put people in. So if people don't have a place to live, as I said before, mental health starts to get affected, and then that deteriorates. So people start to then, when they get anxious and they get depressed, they turn to substance abuse. And when they turn to substance abuse, leads to family violence. It leads to all different problems. So by getting someone a home and actually supporting them in that home environment with really good services, professional services, just general caring services, then we'll start to see people get well. We've seen that happen on a small scale here on the Bellarine Peninsula. Not even successfully though, because the services still aren't here. So not only do we need the government to actually come on board and say we're going to address this problem, we actually need to work as a community to collectively say we've got to support people. We've got to support each of us. We have to look at the rents, why are they so high? Like, it's a big problem. And then it goes back to the banks, and then there's real estate. You know, it's a very big problem. It's not just loving. Loving is great. You know, if we can love people and care for people and make them know that they're supported, so people don't separate and families don't separate. And when those families separate, then you need other homes to find people to go to. Do you know what I mean? You need other accommodation. So really what is needed is action from politicians, from the local government, but from the community. We need a revolution, really, of people that are going to take this serious and work to come up with realistic solutions, because otherwise it's all just going to be kind of band-aid solutions. And band-aids are important. We know a band-aid is important. It stops infection. But at the same time, sometimes you need surgery, major surgery, and you need specialists, really great people. And really that's why I think, we need to be petitioning our politicians.
You can help us by signing our petition.